In this video, what we're going to do is cut out a subject and add a layer mask, and also learn how to refine edge so you can cut out things like tiny little hairs. We're going to start with this image on a plain background. We're going to right click, edit in Adobe Photoshop. This will open the image up in Photoshop. We want to edit a copy with Lightroom adjustments because it will save a copy to Lightroom, even though we haven't edited this picture. Next, we're going to be using what we call the quick selection tool. There's also a new tool called Select Subject. If you have a subject on a plain background, oftentimes Select Subject will automatically select your subject quite easily. So this might be a good place to start. I'm going to click Select Subject. My computer is going to think. And it actually did a really great job of selecting my subject. It just missed a tiny little piece down there. So what I would do is just go ahead and paint over that to add to my selection. And then I would go ahead and after my whole subject selected, oops, I'm going to go ahead and add a layer mask and cut my subject out. If your subject is not on a plain background, the other way to do this with the quick selection tool is to go ahead and just paint over your subject. I'm doing it in small chunks so it can select specific values. If you do larger chunks, it often will select some of the background. If you accidentally select something you did not intend to, you're going to hold down the Option key, which will turn your mouse to a negative sign. So I'm just going to hold that down and deselect that area. I'm holding down the negative sign. There we go. And I'm just deselecting that area. I'm going to deselect right there. I'm going to go around and continue selecting parts of my subject. I'm adding, and I sort of let it load. Here it did select the background, so I'm going to just go ahead and paint over that with the Option key and continue to add to my selection. Again, going back and refining. Go over here. Go over here. Oops. Once you have your subject selected, again, even if it's not its own layer, you can go ahead and in this version of Photoshop, you can just hit the layer mask tool and it will cut your subject out. Once you have your subject masked, you'll see black and white next to your subject and you'll see a link. Anything that's white is what you see. Anything that's black is hidden. If I right click and disable the layer mask, you'll see all the information is still there. All the information is still there, so I can bring it back if I wanted to. So if I actually painted over the white areas with a black paintbrush, this is just for an example, I will hide my subject. I'm going to go back to my layer mask. You're going to want to find in your properties panel, select and mask. Another way to do it is you could double click on your layer mask and you should get this option as well. We're going to go to Enter, Select and Mask. And now we're going to be able to refine our edge. We have a couple different views that we can view this. If you have a background, you can do View on Layers. You can view it on black. Overlay is showing you kind of a red. Now this is not going to apply to your picture. It's just so you can see the edge of your image better, so you can refine the edges to get a better edge when you do place something in front or behind it. I'm going to start off by using the Refine Edge brush, and then I'm going to actually make the size of my brush a little bigger. This brush is used to paint around the edges of your subject. So I'm going to paint around the edges of the hair. And what it does is it's going to cut out the hair a little bit better to make it look more natural. You can also do radius and add a smart radius, and it will try to better select the edge. This brush might be a little bit too big, so I'm going to go back in here with a smaller brush. I'm just doing little sections and painting around the edge of my picture. Another way to view this that might be helpful is onion skin, so you can see the picture, but you can also see anything that is not selected. So wisps of hair, and you can paint over those. If you make the transparency more increased, you should be able to see what parts of the picture are not included. So I'm going to keep painting over the edge. And it does take a little while to load sometimes, but it's just updating the edges of your picture, specifically the hair, or if it was like branches or whiskers or anything with texture, that's fine. That you want like a nice finessed look is where you're going to want to paint over. The edges of his shirt can probably be fixed with smooth. You can add feather, which is going to blur the edges. Sometimes a soft blur works, but if you do too much, it's going to be a little obvious. And then contrast is looking for just contrast in your picture. So for me, it would be in the hair here. So by adding a little bit of contrast, I can isolate the hair a little bit better. The last thing is shift edge. So sometimes if I'm making a selection, I'm getting too much of the background. So you can shift edge in a little bit, and that will just eliminate just a little bit of the picture. That might actually eliminate part of the hair though, so I might not want to do it, but usually I'm shifting edge to the negative side. Once I'm done making my selections, I see my subject looks pretty well cut out. I might just paint over some of this to get a softer edge. Then I'm going to hit OK. And it will apply my changes. And now I can see when I added the layer mask, that was before. And then with my refinements, it should look a lot more natural, especially in the hair area. So now when I add a picture behind it, it will blend in with the background much better and more naturally. When you're done, you can go ahead and hit File and Save. And this will save your image. You can open this up later from Lightroom. You just want to edit the original so that it opens it up as a layer, and you can bring in a background, or you can bring this cutout image into another image as a layer. All right, that is it. Layer mask and refining the edge of your mask.